Last week I started the theme of textures, looking at textures, and my idea was also to combine it with the next project, if you wanted to, which is on the theme of derelict or derelict things. So if you want to do that, or you could just stick with textures if you wanted to have a go at that. So last week's demo I was looking at acrylics and oils, and I thought this week I'll do a little bit of experimenting with watercolours, so that's what I'm doing. And so that's that. Then the other thing to mention is that, so April, I'm having a 1 week break right at the end of April. So if my emails have coming through all right, hopefully you've got that information. So there's actually still 4 weeks of April, 4 Thursdays in April. But the last week I won't be running class. And then the other thing to mention is planned a couple of painting holidays if anybody's interested, which are kind of do-it-yourself type holidays in terms of getting there and accommodation. But I know some people have been interested. I've got probably about half a dozen people signed up for this one, which is Southwold in June. So it can be either Saturday, or it can be the whole weekend, Saturday and Sunday, or if you just want to do one day, if anybody's interested. So we'll be sketching and painting in Southwold. That's the one. And then the other idea I had is Italy, which 1 or 2 people are interested in. So you can fly from Southend to Pisa. And I was thinking there's some nice places around that area. So again, I know 1 or 2 of you are interested in that. So again, it's the same sort of basis, kind of sorting out your own accommodation, getting there and things like that. And I will provide the 2 ideas if you're interested.
I mean, I've never been to Pisa, so how, if we all come, how do we stay as a group, not dotted all around, you know, how do we have a sort of central?
Yeah, we need to sort of plan, you know, we need to sort of, a few people interested in decide where we're going to place ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, you know a few places, Peter, don't you, around that
area? Yeah, it's but it's as you say, if there's a number of you who are interested, then see if you can get accommodation together.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's places like Lucca and Siena, they're quite nice cities, and the one with the towns which I'm about. So it could be that we
San Germano.
Yeah, it's a matter of who's interested, how we get there, how we transport ourselves when we get there, whether we hire a car or use public transport. So it's more of a kind of DIY, communal sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're interested, I can keep sending info.
Have you booked somewhere yourself?
I'm planning to do. Well, I'm planning to go travelling myself through Italy around about that time. So I'm going to drive there and just go to different places. I'm going to probably camping and things like that. So I'm sort of planning to take a longer kind of break at the end of the summer, probably about 5 or 6 weeks, and just do a bit of travelling around on my own. So I'll have a break from classes then.
Have you decided whereabouts in Pisa you're staying? Have you decided where? Have you decided whether it's going to be Siena or?
I don't mind. I haven't decided because it's kind of more down to whoever's interested in them.
I've got cousins that live there, and they've got some apartments actually.
Oh right,
Probably let because they're quite popular.
Yeah, it's more kind of work it out. We'll work it out sort of thing if you're interested. And you're interested. Yeah, rather because in the past I've sort of done things through other companies, and then you got this price and they provide this. And I just didn't really want to go down that route. It's sort of like a bit of a commitment from my part to sort of like say, well, I'll come up with so many students, and I can't necessarily do that. Sometimes I have, sometimes I haven't. And I just didn't want the stress of that really. But I thought, you know, it's quite nice if we did want to do a painting holiday, we could kind of improvise it ourselves really. There's plenty of nice places you could stay, and it just depends who's interested, and you know, who I know Naomi's interested, I think Peter's interested, and 1 or 2 others. We could decide what and where and how much we want to spend on accommodation and what we want to do, how much we want to spend on getting around.
Yeah.
You can fly from Southend Airport to Pisa, which makes it nice and easy to get there. So I thought that's why I picked that as a base to then go out from.
Good.
It makes a huge difference when you've done somewhere like Gatwick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I've got my van, I'll probably drive down a camp or maybe take other places on the way. But in terms of getting, for students to get out there, that would be the easiest. Something like that.
So you're going to be out there and then meet us. You're not
Yes.
going on afterwards.
No, I will head off a week before, so I don't get there in time or something like that. Because it's quite a slow coming day. Yeah. But I just sort of really fancied having a long holiday myself, and I thought, well, because one or two people were interested in a painting holiday, I thought, well, maybe I could combine the two, stop off, do a bit of teaching, and I'll carry on doing my own trip sort of thing. So that's that if you're up for that. Yeah, I've got the dates there. So so the Italy one was the 14th of September. Yeah. And that took me a week to get down there. Okay, so that's that. So in terms of textures and watercolours, this was the sort of demo I started on Tuesday, and I've added little bits to it. And then this other one, which I'll carry on with a little bit now, I started this morning. So these were out in the estuary, the Mansell forts, Red Sands forts. So they were like Second World War defences, if you haven't come across them. And a couple of years ago, I got the chance to go on a boat trip with some other artists, and we set off from down the end there, and went around and painted, had a couple of hours painting at different sites. So that was one of the places. And it was really quite impressive, interesting structures. And I did a couple of quick sketchy paintings, but I've always thought it'd be nice to develop them or develop the ideas. So I thought I'd start by just doing something that's more of just playing around. So I've really just done a sort of cropped version of that, with the intention of exploring watercolours more than anything. So this is a bit of general inspiration, but I'm not going to worry too much about sticking rigidly to that. So what I did this morning, I just started off with just getting a little bit of background washes in. So it's quite, and I'll do a tiny bit more here. So it could be a bit more of the blue, just in places. And with watercolours, I find it's best to work, for me, I like to work all the lighter tones first. If you get too close to a darker tone, like if I go into that, I don't know if it's going to do that. You can see more on this one actually, because some of the blue I put on after, and then it all started bleeding out. So I like to get the lights on first. So that would be something like that, and could perhaps, if I wanted to vary it a little bit, perhaps put a slightly stronger blue in there, not quite so wet, just so that I've got a little bit of variation. And then these areas here, I started off with a pale flat wash, and actually this side does to me feel slightly light on this one, so I could probably put a slightly darker wash on there, a sharper brush. So maybe just pop that. So ideally you don't want it vertical, otherwise the paint will run like that. So that's a slightly darker version, slightly darker wash. And then we could then, while it's still wet, play around with that and try and put some other textures in there. This I think had already dried before I flick paint, so just using like a toothbrush and slightly stiffer paint. And I'll make it a little bit darker so it shows up. So you should be able to just kind of splatter and flick a little bit of paint in there. And that gives almost like an impression of rust and things like that. Another idea would be to use a knife. And on this one, I think the background wash was really wet, and I just literally just put a knife through there like that. And I think because it was so wet, it all started bleeding a little bit, which was quite nice to have some areas of sharpness, but also very soft areas. So using palette knives, which again is not an implement that generally you would use for watercolour. So you can have contrasting sharp. If I go over a dry bit, I'll get a very sharp bit. You can also get, it's kind of a little bit grainy. So you get some nice short sharp lines if you want those. And that is starting to bleed, which is quite nice, I quite like that. There's a few horizontals too. Let's see what else we can do. There was a bit, this bit down here, I've just used a little bit of candle wax, and it's difficult to control where it goes and to see where it goes, but it does give you like a resist, so that's quite nice. So, and also a little bit of texture, because it picks up the texture of the paper a little bit. You get a nice little bit of texture that way. Trying to think of the thing to do. Another idea would be to use, to actually paint with a knife over a bigger area. So I've done a little bit of that here. I'll carry that on just to make that a bit wetter. I'll add maybe a little bit of red and blue in there just to change the colour slightly. So yeah, I mean with watercolours you generally wouldn't paint with a palette knife, but I actually quite like some of the almost like textures you can create. Let's try a little bit down here. So you can get maybe drag bits off. That bit is more of a dry, almost like a dry brush effect. So perhaps some solid areas, some more textured areas. And then what else we've got? We've got really other things you can use, things like, if you haven't got palette knives, I've got loads of palette knives here if you want to use some of these. Also things like credit cards or old plastic cards, paint, sort of glue spreaders, they're all quite good for little, it could be like little details in the windows, something like that. A bit darker. Or even just small marks, little kind of bits of railings and things like that. A bit more paint on there. Just these little dots and dashes. So it's really just to encourage a bit of experimenting, a bit of playing around. There's all sorts of things that you can use to create textures. The other thing you can do, once the paint's dry, is you could put some pastel over the top. So just try with this orange. So again, that would pick up the texture of the paper and give you another texture. Or you could use this if you wanted to sort of like draw back in some lighter, finer lines, things like that. You go a bit lighter. So it's really just to encourage a little bit, have something as a bit of inspiration, but to encourage playing around with the paints and the textures. All good?
Yes.
Yep. So, yeah, if you want to use any of these materials here, please feel free.